Hi pupils, welcome in our today's class. This is Teacher Edward. Our subject today is science. I want us to continue with the topic that we had started, that is plants, and our subtopic will be classification of plants. Classification is not a new term. We have been talking about it, and maybe you can remind me what we said classification is. Good, I've seen some of you giving the feedback. Classification, we said, is grouping things with common characteristics. So when you put things together, things that are sharing similar or common characteristics, that is what we refer to as classification. So today, I want us to look at classification of plants. Classification of plants. So that means that I want us to group plants that have similar characteristics. So sometimes you can be asked what is the meaning of classification of plants. Just say it is grouping plants with similar characteristics. Classification of plants means grouping plants with similar characteristics. So I have some examples of plants. So today I'll be taking you out for a nature walk to see some plants. But here with me, I have some samples of plants. I have some samples of plants. These are just but a few. And as you can see, all these plants have some things or some characteristics that you are seeing in them. Yes, and those characteristics can be used to group them. I have others here in this container. Some of them are withered. Yes. So as you can see them, they have some similarities and some differences. So those similarities and those differences can be used to group them. So once you do that, that is what we call classification. So I know you have seen some of their similarities. Yes. Somebody who is saying there are some plants here with flowers. Yes. And also, as you can see, they are green. Yes, they have different types of fruits and so on. So those are some of the things that can be used. You can decide to use the color of plants. So in science, we say that plants can be classified into different ways. So we have classification based on their color. We have those that are green and others that are non-green. Then they can be classified into flowering and non-flowering. We have some plants that produce flowers, and we have others that do not produce flowers. There are many ways of classifying those plants. There is another way. You can classify monocots and dicots. Yes, monocots are plants that have seeds with one cotyledon. Mono means one. Then we have dicots. These are plants that have seeds with two cotyledons. So they can be classified based on whether they have one or two cotyledons, that is dicots or monocots. So those are just but a few ways of classifying plants, but the major ones are based on whether they are green or non-green, and another one based on whether they are flowering or non-flowering. So I want us to first classify our plants into two. So plants can be classified into two. So I'll draw a flow chart on the board. So I have said that plants can be classified into two. The first way of classifying them is we have green plants. We have green plants. These are plants that are green, like the ones that I have shown you. Yes, the ones that I have here, they are all green. They are green plants. And then the other one is those that are not green, the non-green plants. So plants can either be classified into green plants or non-green plants. So green plants are green. They are green because they have the green coloring pigment known as chlorophyll. So we say that green plants are green because they have a green coloring pigment known as chlorophyll. Then we have non-green plants. These non-green plants don't have the green coloring pigment known as chlorophyll. So for these green plants, they have that chlorophyll and it helps them in the process of photosynthesis. That is whereby they make their own food. But these non-green plants, they don't have the chlorophyll. That means that they don't make their own food. They don't have that ability to make their own food. They depend on other plants. Mostly they depend on dead, decaying plants. So from there, these green plants are divided into two. The green plants are divided into two. The first group, we have flowering plants. So we have some green plants that are flowering. They are green and produce flowers. Yes, they are green and produce flowers. I have a good example here. This plant here is green. It has some flowers. So this is a good example of a green flowering plant. Then from there, we have some green plants that do not produce flowers. So they are green non-flowering plants. They are green non-flowering plants. So that is how green plants can be classified. So I have said that green plants can be classified or divided into two. That is flowering or green flowering plants. Then we have green plants that are non-flowering. That is green non-flowering plants. Then from there, these non-green plants are also divided into two. Yes, the non-green plants are also divided into two. One group is known as fungus. The other one is known as bacteria. So we have fungus and we have bacteria. So the non-green plants are divided into two, that is fungus and bacteria. Now I want us to give out examples of green flowering plants. But before that, let me take you back from where we have started. So we have said that plants are classified into two. Plants are classified into two. We have green plants. These are plants that are green. They have chlorophyll, and that chlorophyll or the green coloring pigment enables them to make their own food. Then we have non-green plants. We have non-green plants. These ones we have said that they don't have chlorophyll, so they are not able to make their own food. Then from there we have said that green plants are divided into two. We have said that we have green flowering plants and we have green and flowering plants. Green flowering plants produce flowers. Then the green non-flowering plants don't produce flowers. They are green, but they don't produce flowers. Then we have the non-green plants. We have said that they are divided into two. We have the fungus or fungi. Then we have the bacteria. Those are the two classes of the non-green plants. Then from there, when it comes to the issue of flowers, remember it is the reproductive part of a plant. So as we continue, I will tell you how the non-flowering plants and the non-green plants reproduce. But for these green flowering plants, they reproduce by means of flowers because they have the flowers. So I want us to give examples of flowering plants. So I know you have many examples of this. These are very common, very simple. Yes, they are all over. Most of the plants that you know, the green plants that you know, are flowering. Yes, so I want to get some examples from you. I want to see you sharing and giving out and brainstorming some of those examples. Good, I can see some good boys there and girls sharing with their friends, their guardians. Yes, that is good. So we have very many examples, but I'll just give a few. Because if I decide to give you examples of green flowering plants, can do it the whole day. Yes, and still I will not be able to exhaust all. So some of the examples, very common. Maybe I can start by giving out some examples of cereals. So most or all cereals, can put them there. Things like maize. Maize, can add something like wheat. Yes. Rice, sorghum, millet, and many other examples of cereals. We have tubers like cassava, another one, sweet potatoes. When you look at their vines, you find that they are green and they also produce flowers. Yes, we have things like Irish potatoes, arrowroots, good, all those examples, yams, and many others. We have legumes, things like beans. We have things like beans, yes, peas, French beans, soya beans, and so on. All those legumes are there. Most of the fruits that you know, things like mangoes, yes, mangoes, good, avocados, yes, apples, guavas, all those fruits that you know, oranges, lemons, pawpaws, yes, pineapples, all those fruits that I have mentioned, and many others, they also produce flowers, so they can be included here. We have things like grass, yes, as you can see, that grass, those are the flowers of grass. Yes, grass produce flowers. You also have things like napier grass. Yes, we have acacia. Yes, that is acacia. Yes, that is acacia. We have things like the K apple. Yes, mostly it is used as a fence, like the one that I'm showing you. This one has not yet produced flowers, but after a certain period of time, you find that such a fence or such plants like this K apple produces flowers. And then after that, the flowers produce fruits. And those fruits are the ones that produce the seeds, which can be planted to produce a young plant. Yes, and many other examples, like the ones that I'm showing you on your screen. Yes, look at these examples that I'm showing you. All these are examples of green flowering plants. They produce flowers. Yes, write them down. Yes, good. So those are examples of green flowering plants. On the board I've just written a few. Now you can be able to give many more examples. That is good. So from there, I want us to give out examples of green plants that are non-flowering. In other words, green non-flowering plants. Yes, green non-flowering plants. Good. These ones, we have many, but as per the syllabus, we only give a few. So I'll only give a few, and that means that it is very easy for you to remember. Remember, once you asked, always give the examples that I'll give out, because these are the ones that are in the syllabus. So the first one, we have the first example, we have algae. Yes, we have algae. Yes, the one that I'm showing on the screen is what we refer to as algae. Good, look at it. Good. From there we have liverworts. We have liverworts. Yes, those are liverworts. Good. Look at them. There's another good example of a green non-flowering plant. It is known as liverwort. We also have another one known as mosses. Yes, mosses. We have mosses. Good. Those are mosses, the ones that I'm showing you. Mostly you'll find that these mosses grow on wet areas. Yes, like the ones that I'm showing you. This place is very wet, that's why you find them growing there. And others, mostly the base of walls is also very wet, like this part that I'm showing you here. Yes, these are mosses, the right places like here. Once you find them there, realize that that part is very wet. So if you want to locate them, look them at the base of walls where mostly the walls are wet or damp. Yes, those are mosses. This is how they look like. Yes, they are green but non-flowering. They don't produce flowers. They don't produce flowers. Those are mosses. Another good example that we have is the one that I'm showing on the screen. They are known as ferns. They are known as ferns. Yes, that is how they look like. They are also green and flowering. They don't produce flowers. Then we have another good example. They are known as conifers. This is a group of plants known as conifers. They reproduce by means of cones. They have special seeds that are known as cones. That's why they are given the name conifers. Yes, we have examples of conifers. Yes, things like pine. Yes, the one that I'm showing you is pine. This is a good example of conifers. They do not produce flowers. They reproduce by means of cones. Pine, yes, that is pine. We have another known as cedar. Yes, cedar, that is cedar. Good. We also have another one that is known as cypress. Yes, cypress. Cypress is very common. Most of the furniture that we have are made of cypress. It does not produce flowers. And then another example, another good example of conifer is a plant known as Douglas fir. Yes, mostly we call it fir, but you can still call it Douglas fir. Good. That is Douglas fir or fir. Yes, that is how it looks like. Yes, those are good examples of green non-flowering plants. So those are good examples of green and flowering plants. So I have come up with a memory aid. Sometimes we call them mnemonics. You can still come up with your own. These memory aids are very important. They can help you recall some details easily. So mine, to remind yourself about this green and flowering plant, is Arimopheco. Arimopheco. A for algae or alga. R for riverworts, riverworts. Mo for mosses or moss, mosses or moss. Then Fe for ferns, yes, Fe for ferns. Co for conifers. So just say Almofeco, and it will help you recall all those examples of green and flowering plants. And remember, when it comes to conifers, I have said that we have some examples of conifers, things like pine, cedar, cypress, and fir. I have said this fir can also be called Douglas fir. Yes, so those are good examples that we have given out. So we have talked about the examples of the groups of the green plants. So we have said that they are classified into two. We have flowering, we have green flowering plants. We have given out examples. Then we have the green and flowering plants. We have given out examples, and I have given out a mnemonic or a memory aid to remind yourself about that. So from here, I want us to move on and give out examples of these non-green plants. So remember, we have said that these non-green plants are divided into two. We have the fungi or the fungus and the bacteria. So for bacteria, we don't give out examples, so just leave them that way. So the only area where we will give out examples is here under fungus. So we give examples of fungi as we move on. So we have many examples of fungi, but we only address a few. Then I leave you to find others. Yes. So fungi, we have said that they are plants, but they are non-green. And all non-green plants are non-flowering. They don't produce flowers. So examples, we have toadstools. We have toadstools. Yes, toadstools are good examples, like the ones that you are seeing on your screen. Those are toadstools. Yes. Yes, and these ones are poisonous. So don't try to eat them. They are poisonous. Then from toadstools, we have mushrooms. We have mushrooms. It's like the ones that you are seeing on your screen. Mostly they grow after rains begin. So when it starts raining, or when the rainy season starts, that's when you see most of these mushrooms. Mushrooms are edible. They are good. These ones can be eaten. Yes, toadstools, I have said they are poisonous, but mushrooms are edible. They can be eaten. So then number 3, we have another known as ringworms. We have ringworms. Yes, we have ringworms. We'll talk about them later. Then from ringworms, we have Penicillium. Yes, we also talk about them later. Penicillium. We also have another one known as dandruff or dandruffs. We also have dandruffs. Dandruffs are other examples of fungus or fungi. We also have molds. Yes, molds like growing on dead, decaying plants. Yes. If you want to see them, there's an activity. You can take some foodstuffs. Yes, like ugali. You can take a piece of bread. Yes, or cooked potatoes. You make sure that they are wet. Then you preserve them somewhere. You put them somewhere for a few days. After that, you find some things growing. Yes, like the ones that I'm showing you. Yes, those are molds. Those are molds. They like growing on dead, decaying plants or foodstuffs. Yes, those are molds. Yes, that is another good example of fungi. We also have yeast. Yeast is another example. Then after that we have puffballs. Yes, puffballs, that's how they look like. Yes, puffballs, those are puffballs. We have another one known as arthritis foot. Yes, arthritis foot. So those are a few examples of fungi or fungus. So once you are asked to give out, you give out those examples that I have given out. We also have others like maize smut. Yes, that is how maize smut looks like. And another one known as bracket tree. Bracket tree. Yes, and many others. So those are just but a few examples. Yes, as you can see on the screen, under there, I have given you a memory aid. Just to remind you a few examples of these fungus. Yes, that memory aid is Tomuli Penda Moye Pua. That's just mine. You can come up with yours. Yes, Tomuli Penda Moye Pua. Tomuli Penda Moye Pua. So that is a memory aid. Top 4, toadstools, mu, mushrooms, ringworms, penicillium, dandruff, molds, yeast, puffballs, arthritis foot. So those are some of the examples that we have given out. So you can also come up with yours or use mine, but I want you to be also creative to come up with as many memory aids as possible. They can help you remember those things, but make sure you master. That will be the best. Master those examples that you have given out. I have given out some examples of fungi, and as you can recall, I've just told you that we have some fungi like toadstools that are poisonous. And then I have given you another one like mushroom. I have told you that it is edible. That means that we have some good and some bad fungus. So I want us to separate the two. We have some harmful fungus and we also have some useful fungus. So let's first start by the harmful fungus and then look at the useful. So a good example of harmful fungi that we have is toadstool. We have toadstool. We also have things like puffballs and molds. Those three are good examples of poisonous fungus. So they are poisonous. So you're supposed to avoid eating them. Others like molds, they cause decaying of food. So mostly your foods decay because of those molds. You also find that sometimes if you store your maize without drying them well or properly, you find them turning greenish. Yes, that is a good indication that they have been affected or they have fungal infections. Even some potatoes, you find them turning greenish, like the ones that I'm showing on the screen. Once you see them turning greenish, like the ones that you're seeing there, it means they have fungal infections. And once you realize that, you're supposed to know that they are poisonous. So they are supposed to be destroyed, but not to be eaten. So those are some of the things that we can talk about. Then after that, we have some fungus that cause diseases known as fungal infections. So we have some that cause fungal infections, and mostly we have three. Once you are asked to give out examples of fungal infections, you give out three. We have one known as arthritis foot. Yes, we have one that is known as arthritis foot. Yes, and this one, it affects the skin between your toes. Yes, sometimes you find some cracks between your toes or the skin between your toes wearing out. that means that you have arthritis foot. That is a fungal infection. It is known as arthritis foot. Another very common fungal infection, we call it ringworms. So this one affects the skin on the head. Ringworms affects the skin on your head. So, and sometimes you find that hair may fall off and leave some patches. This is the one that you commonly call mashiringi. Unasikia mtu akikwambia uko na mashiringi, utoe mkanunue kitu. Yes, that is mostly a joke, but in real sense, that is a disease, a fungal disease or infection. So it is called ringworm. So it affects the skin on the head, and sometimes it causes some patches of hair to fall off. So you have said that it is called ringworm. The third one, we have dandruff. That is the third fungal infection. So it causes the skin on the head to peel off. It causes the skin on your head to peel off. So sometimes you scratch yourself and you find your head or your head skin peeling off. Whitish substances may be left on your fingers. That means that your skin or the head's skin is peeling off, or the skin on the head is peeling off. That is a fungal infection. So you have said that we have 3 fungal infections. One of them is arthritis foot. Yes, the peeling of the skin between your toes. Then we have the ringworms. Yes. Then we have dandruff. So once you are asked to give 3 fungal infections, remember the 3: arthritis foot, ringworms, and dandruff. So those are some of the things that we can talk about when we're talking about the harmful fungus. Remember, we have said we have others that are poisonous, like molds, puffballs, and toadstools. So then from there, we have useful fungi or fungus. Number 1, we have Penicillium. Yes, these are an example of fungi. Yes, Penicillium. This Penicillium is very useful. It is used to make a curative medicine known as penicillin. Yes, we said, remember when we were talking about medicines in class 5, we said that, and others in grade 3, we said that medicines or curative medicines are used to cure diseases. So they are used to cure diseases or to treat diseases. And a good example of a curative medicine is penicillin. Penicillin is made from Penicillium. And as you know, Penicillium is one of good examples of fungi. So Penicillium is useful. It is used to make a curative medicine known as penicillin. Another very good or useful fungi is known as yeast. Yes, yeast is another useful fungi. It is used in baking to raise dough. Yes, that is whenever you mix your flour, your wheat flour and water, that mixture is the one that is known as dough. Once you want to raise it, you use yeast. Yes, you use yeast. Then from there, the third useful fungi is known as mushroom. I had mentioned it earlier. We said that mushroom is used as food. So in other words, it is edible. Mushroom is edible. And I have said we have toadstools and puffballs. You can easily mistake them with mushrooms. So if you don't know the difference between the two, kindly don't eat or cook, because I have said you might easily confuse and cook the one that is poisonous. So ask for assistance from those who know the differences so that you can easily identify mushrooms. So mushrooms can be used as food. So they are delicious, very sweet. Yes, that is how they look like. Yes, those are mushrooms. And these ones are cooked mushrooms. Yes, they are very sweet, very sweet. Yes, but don't just cook without knowing the differences between them. I've said that there are others like toadstools and puffballs which are poisonous. So those are some of the useful fungus. Good pupils, those are some of the ways in which we classify plants. We have classified and we have given out examples. Remember, we have said that plants can be classified into two, although there are many other ways of classifying them, but we have classified them into two. We have green plants and non-green plants. From there, we have said that green plants are also classified or divided into two. We have flowering and non-flowering plants. Yes, then from there, we have given out examples of these green flowering plants, and we have said that green plants, they have a green coloring pigment known as chlorophyll, and this one helps the plants to make their own food. Then we have given out examples, and we have said that there are many examples of these green flowering plants. Yes, as you can see on the screen, those are some of the examples that we have given out. Then from there, we have given out examples of green non-flowering plants. I've told you that here you have to be very specific because they are very few, and these are the ones that we have given out are the ones that are in the syllabus. I've given out a memory aid to remind yourself about that. I've said Arimopheco. Yes, so we have given out examples. Yes, algae, liverworts, mosses, ferns, and conifers. We have given out examples of conifers like pine, cedar, cypress, and Douglas fir. So make sure you recall all those examples. Then from there, we have classified the non-green plants. We have said they are divided into two, that is fungi and bacteria. Then we have given out more examples of fungi, yes, like the ones that you are seeing on the screen. I've also given you a memory aid to remind yourself on that. Then on bacteria, we have said that we don't give out examples. So just know that we have bacteria, but when it comes to fungi, make sure you know the examples that we have given out. Then from there, before we wind up, we have said that those green plants, they have those that produce flowers. So we have said that the green flowering plants reproduce by means of flowers. Yes, they reproduce by means of flowers. But what about the others that don't have flowers? How do they reproduce? So most of the other non-flowering plants reproduce by means of spores. So, and spores are single cells which are produced by plants. They are single cells which are produced by plants, and they are tiny and dusty, and if dispersed, they germinate and grow into new plants. So they germinate and grow into new plants. So for example, the non-flowering plants that we have said here, like the ferns and the others, they produce by means of spores. They produce spores. Then we have another method of reproduction in plants known as budding. Yes, a good example of a plant that produces by means of budding is yeast. They reproduce or they produce some buds, and once those buds fall on the ground, they grow into new plants. So we have some plants that produce by means of budding, plants like yeast, and also algae. They produce by means of budding. For example, that's a good plant. When you look at it, it has some buds. So those buds are the ones that grows into new plants. Yes, good. We also have another method of reproduction, like cell division. Yes, like cell division. Yes, cell division is a process by which a plant cell divides into two or many daughter cells, or into many plants, or into many cells. So for example, look at the board. If this is a plant, mostly bacteria, they reproduce by means of cell division. If this was a bacteria, once it wants to reproduce, it divides. Remember, living organisms are made up of cells. So this is one living organism. So it can divide into many cells. And then after that, each cell becomes a bacteria on itself, or becomes a plant on itself. The other one the same, the other one the same, the other one the same, like that. And then after a certain period of time, they also subdivide and continue reproducing. So this is what we call cell division. So I have said that cell division is a process by which a plant cell divides into many, or into two or more cells. So those are some of the things that you're supposed to know when it comes to reproduction. So you have said that the flowering plants, and mostly these are the green flowering plants, they reproduce by means of flowers. It's like the ones that I'm showing you. Yes, we also come and talk about how plants reproduce. Yes, we talk about reproduction in plants. I'll teach you more about flowers and how reproduction takes place in plants. But for now, know that plants, the green flowering plants, reproduce by means of flowers. Those flowers are the ones that grow into fruits, and inside those fruits, that's why we have the seeds, and these seeds are the ones that are used to, they are planted to, and after germination, they grow into a new plant. Then apart from flowers, most of the other plants produce by means of spores. But we have plants like conifers that produce by means of cones. I told you that they produce cones. Yes, like the ones that I'm showing you here, those are cones. Yes, those are cones. Yes, these cones are the ones that after dispersal, they are the ones that germinate and grow into new plants. I've also told you that we have another method of reproduction that mostly takes place in bacteria. It's known as cell division. Then another method is budding. So I've told you that budding is a type of sexual reproduction in which a new organism develops from an outgrowth of bud. It is a type of sexual reproduction in which a new organism develops from an outgrowth of bud. So I've shown you some buds. Yes, those are the buds that we are talking about. Once they fall on the ground, they grow into a new plant. That process of reproduction is what we call budding. Mostly it is common in plants like yeast and algae. So once you are asked about that, remember to give out examples of those methods of reproduction. Also, we have told you that the others that we have not given out specific methods of reproduction, they reproduce by means of spores. Yes, they have spores, like the ones that I'm showing. These are mosses and flowering plants. They are green but do not produce flowers. Yes, the ones that I'm showing you are the things that I'm calling spores. Yes, once these spores are dispersed, yes, they germinate and grow into new plants. They germinate and grow into new plants. So those are some of the things that you're supposed to know. Make sure you can call different ways of classifying plants And once you're asked to classify, make sure you can give out examples. So I want to summarize by giving you 3 questions. Yes, question number 1. Plants can be classified into dash and dash. Yes, plants can be classified into dash and dash. Good. Green plants can be classified into dash and dash. Green plants can be classified into dash and dash. Number 3A. Number 3A. Give 4 examples of green non-flowering plants. Give 4 examples of green non-flowering plants. Number 3B. Number 3B. Give 6 examples of fungus. Give 6 examples of fungus. Give 6 examples of fungus. Good. Those few questions are enough, but make sure you go through everything that you have said. Until next time, I wish you all the best. Goodbye.